that you have to agree to it. So people who join later will know that that's happening as well. There you go.
Great. Shall we kick off then, Veronica, do you think? Yeah? Okay.
Yep.
Right, so I guess a bit of housekeeping first, then we've got an hour. If you want to speak, use the stick your hand up tool or wave your hand if you've got your camera running, and we'll try and spot those people, or put something in the chat and we'll try and see that. If you can keep your mic on mute if you're not talking, generally that's quite a good thing. It avoids lots of background noise and things like that creeping in. We've got quite a lot to cover. Hopefully it'll be of interest, and I'm very keen that we maximize our time for some conversation as well, because I think that's going to be probably the most interesting bit of this. So I won't ramble on particularly. I just to sort of contextualize why we're here, I suppose, might be useful just to sort of kick us off. So I think we sort of started out thinking, well, we really ought to do something in terms of communicating out about where we're up to and what's been happening, because it's been we've been at it about a year now, something like that, just over a year, plus the sort of couple of years that it took to get to the start point. So that seemed to make sense. And also, I think it's a good opportunity to sort of revisit some of the really good conversations that we were having on the calls that we were doing over sort of last summer, I think, and which were fascinating, really sort of looking at and talking to people involved in sort of cooperative care in other parts of the country, and trying to learn from each other. And that was really interesting and valuable. And I guess there's also a thing about just sort of looking at the, obviously we've got a mix of people here. Some people here are members of the cooperative here and put investment in to help us get started. Other people are from other parts of the country and interested in all sorts of different things. So we've got a good mix of people here as well. So hopefully we'll have a really good conversation. So I think in broad terms, we're going to do it in a couple of bits. So John's going to talk to us, and Jan, I think, about sort of where we're up to and how the finances are stacking up and things like that, and looking at some of the measures that we're using to sort of guide our business. And then a part of what we're doing, because like when we started out, we were very much thinking about, well, this is going to be a fabulous new social care business. We're going to change the world. We're going to do things really radically. And then, of course, the pandemic hit. And when you start actually doing it for real, you've got to focus right down on the nitty gritty. So it was all our attention has been focused on those things. And that our sort of wild radical dreams have been pushed to one side to some degree, but we've now had a bit of a chance to catch breath and start to think about those things again. So part of what we are interested in is what happens around that delivery of social care and the sort of how we take our bold vision forward. So Simon is here from Torbay Community Development Trust, who's been involved. I mean, he's a social care practitioner from old, as it were, but he's also been doing some really interesting and radical stuff in Torbay around their sort of sense of community well-being and building stuff around that. So we think there's a sort of some really exciting stuff in there for us. So we've invited Simon along to talk to us a bit this evening, and he came here as well. He travelled to Slathwaite from Torbay last weekend and spent some time with us here, so he got a sense of the place and what we're doing. So he's going to sort of feed back some reflections on that as well. Hopefully that'll be really interesting. So that's me. I'll shut up and hand over to I think John and Jan next. We're going to do a bit and then we'll try and maximise our time for questions and conversation. So over to you, John.
Okay, well, we're going to start with Jan talking about the business plan that was originally devised and how things have actually panned out over the first year. And I think Veronica's got a series of graphs that we produced for the meeting on Saturday, which Jan's going to speak to. And then I'm going to talk about the work that I'm doing. I joined late last year, and I'm going to talk about what I'm doing after that. So all yours, Jan.
Okay, thank you. I don't suppose it's at all possible to get the graphs on one page, is it, Veronica? Sorry, we should have asked you that before, but
No, I can like move.
okay.
Yeah, no, I've not.
Not to worry, not to worry.
The view. Let me see if I can figure out the view. But so yeah, if you want to start, and I'll see if I can do anything.
Okay, so a general summary, really, of what has happened over the last year is that. Oh, lovely.
Moving in the right direction anyway.
Yeah. Is what we put down on paper in the share offer really has borne no relation to the reality of the situation that we've been faced with. A lot of that was due to the circumstances completely out of our control. Made the decision to start off in a pandemic, which made a huge difference in terms of the people actually procuring services because people were staying at home. So a lot of families were very concerned about their older people, didn't want people going into their homes, but also were in a position to take more sort of action themselves. So I'm sure everybody on the call will have either done or known people that moved in with family members, for those reasons during the last couple of years. So that was a major difference, a massive difference, and something that has really dictated our development has been staffing and the problems around recruiting, which are quite widely shared in the public domain. That's still a problem for us, but we are making steady progress with that, and we're starting to be in a position now, which Danielle will talk about later, where we've got a good core of staff, where our reputation is growing, and hopefully that will really make a difference in terms of both attracting people wanting to use our service, but also staff. So the red line is what we've actually done on all of these, and the blue line was against the financial planning. So I suppose the most obvious thing there is that we've made a much slower but possibly more steady growth, and that has been largely to do with the recruitment, whereas we were planning to basically build up our numbers very quickly and employ teams of 4 people to service the pockets of care that we want to deliver in the ideal world. So that obviously made a big difference to both income and expenditure on the way through. I'm not sure really how much other things. I think actually it would probably be more useful after that just summary to open up to questions. Whether you want to do that now or hear a little bit from John about what we're doing now, or what John's role has taken over as a proper treasurer, I like to say. I was a caretaker treasurer in monitoring what we're doing. Obviously we've got a whole financial year's worth of figures now, so we can look at them in much finer detail and do more analysis.
I think the only other thing to add, Jan, if we can go back to those graphs, Veronica, is that you can see that the projections for what we were hoping to do And what we actually did, we just wildly out in all three aspects, and the hours provided the income and the expenditure. But surprisingly, the overall figure at the end of the year is that the amount of money that we were planning, that the business plan said we'd lose, we were actually pretty much spot on, because both the income and the expenditure. So with less income, the expenditure's been much better controlled. So by and large, we're where we thought we'd be in terms of the loss for the year, which is quite remarkable, really. So I mean, this is all before I joined. So well done, team. Okay, should we go into the KPIs? Okay, very briefly.
I forgot about those. I'm just going to bring them up, so keep talking.
Okay, yeah, I was, Jan asked me to take over as treasurer in December, which I've been doing, and what I'm trying to do is to make sense of the figures, because the figures can be completely misleading and bewildering and obfuscating, and I'm always trying to come up with very clear pictures of what's actually happening, which I've been working on for the last few months. And it's been a bit of a struggle for a whole lot of reasons, partly because the software we had to report on the care hours has been problematic, and we've just put a new system in which all of those doing finance are crossing fingers and toes and everything else we can cross to hope that this system is going to come along. So just to give you a quick idea about what I'm doing, I'm trying to produce figures that say, okay, this is how much work we did, this is how much money we made, these are the number of hours we did it in, these are the costs of providing the care. And again, there's been a problem because the invoices are all done on a calendar month, and all the wages for the care staff are done weekly. So you're always trying to adjust the 35 days of the 5 7-day weeks with the 30 days of the income. So that's an issue which is ongoing, and I hope will be resolved rapidly with this new system. So what I'm trying to do is say, okay, we've got a central overhead which is costing of the order of £7,000, and obviously we've got to do the work to pay for that in order to break even, in order to keep going. And at the moment we're about halfway there, which I think is about where we plan to be at this stage. So obviously next year we have to grow and we have to bring in more income without increasing dramatically the central overhead. And I'm producing these indicators which get fed back to the board and to Danielle and to Claire and Dawn, who run the central office, to give them ideas, a picture of what's going on, so they can inform their decision making. So that's really where we are at the moment. So I think overall, I think the headline news is that we're where we hoped we'd be, but we still got to roughly double in size with the amount of care work we do in order to break even. Okay. Was I on time? Great.
Thanks, John. That's brilliant.
Okay.
Okay. Have we got any comments or questions on that piece? So despite all of the pressures of the pandemic and various other issues that have come into play over the last couple of years, it feels like we're sort of broadly on track in terms of our game plan to achieve sustainability. So there's still some way to go, but the mood's positive, and I think that we're about to start the process of taking commissioned work from our local authority, which is a bit of a new area for us. So, but if that works as we hope it will enable us to grow really much more rapidly over the next 6 months than we have over the last, I think. So that's going to change the picture quite drastically. Are we going to have Danielle next, Veronica, do you think? Yeah, thumbs up there. So Danielle's going to jump in there. So Danielle is our registered manager, so she runs the shop essentially day to day, and does an enormous amount of work on that. So over to you, Danielle. What have you been up to?
Quite a lot. We've had the new system coming in, which we're hoping will just drastically improve efficiencies for not only my role, but also within the team as well. And it's a really good stepping stone from where we've been to where we're about to go, which is, taking on more hours, more user members, business building, and heading into the realm of the Kpis Council, sort of gateway to care, direct payments, hours that we're teetering on the edge of, which is really exciting. So yeah, it's been a challenge constantly, with lots of things to learn and overcome. But these challenges have been amazing because we've been able to learn at every step. We've not always got it right straight away, but I think that's the beauty of it all. So it's been really important to sort of along the way figure out what is the right path. And the thing that I love the most is how we are able to work together with the team and the user members and really bring them in on these conversations. We've had 2 sessions today with some of the team that have come in on 2 different occasions, and the feedback from them in general is just amazing, and having them be involved in certain things that maybe we're discussing as an organisation, and so tipping onto the edge of something that we want to delve into. It's really important to get their aspect, their experiences, is what's going to shape us moving forward as well. So it's exciting. I'm enjoying it. So yeah, I think one of the things I experience a lot with these types of sort of Zoom calls or any experiences I have face to face with people is there's a lot of questions. So I thought I would leave quite a bit of my time that I have left for questions, if anybody does have any.
Any comments on that? Sandra, got your hand up. Great.
Hello. I'm way behind in understanding what you're doing because I haven't had contact with you for many months now. But John said you needed to double in size. Danielle, can you explain why it is that you can't do that? I mean, what is holding you back? Is it the lack of staff availability or the lack of clients? And can you explain this problem you've got with getting referrals from the county council? Because I'm speaking from Pembrokeshire, and I don't think we would have that problem. They would jump in like anything, and as soon as you began, they would start referring clients to you.
Great question, Sandra.
Of course. Yeah, great question. Thank you. And it will definitely help to fill some gaps as well from some of the people. So I wouldn't say that we're having a problem at the moment with not being able to take new user members on and new staff. We've had a recruitment crisis, everybody knows, but we have a nice gradual incline of taking new people on, which we are still having that nice gradual incline. I've got 3 people at the minute waiting to come through to start with us, which is exciting. As for new user members, I've got 4 at the moment that we're building care plans for. I've had another 2 inquiries over the last 2 days that look very hopeful, and that we'll be able to meet what they're looking for as well, because I believe strongly in it being a 2-way street. And the problem with the council, so I'm on a nice steady growth with that. There's been I wouldn't even call them setbacks, but there's been times where we've had to hold back slightly because we've had a slight dip in recruitment, or we've had somebody on our that uses our service that has had to increase their hours quite a lot, which has then made me readjust what the path we were taking at the time. So it's very much been a balancing act, making sure that the scales are weighing nicely, that we're not overrunning the team, that we're meeting people's needs based on what capacity we do have, and not overstretching ourselves. So that's got to be sort of realistic. The people that want to use our services, I've experienced them waiting a few weeks for us. I explain, I'm very open and honest with them about where we are in our journey and how we're growing. And people are quite invested in that as well, because what's happening at the moment is word of mouth. We're having a lot of feedback from people to say that we are one of the best companies that they're experiencing. So that's just amazing as well. And there's no problems with the council hours, with the Kpis. What we did was, with the system we were using, I felt that there was a lot of discrepancies with some of the auditing, and that was based on that system. We gave them opportunity to improve, but there were still discrepancies, especially within medication auditing. Now, I knew that it was correct, that the team are doing what they needed to do, but it was really difficult. So we decided to change systems, which luckily we got some funding from the council, which was amazing. And that's where we're at now. So I'm hoping for watertight auditing, watertight medication audits with the next couple of weeks, that we should have that up and running for the system just 2 weeks tomorrow. And then we can move forward with the putting in for the tender, which I've been informed they're looking at pretty much immediately. And there is a need for the service. So we're very close to just being able to take off with that at the moment. But again, the scales, I have to make sure I've got the right team of people, the amount of people on my team that are ready to be moving forward with that as well. Otherwise, we're just back into the negative side of the balance. So yeah, I wouldn't say problem's the right word.
Yeah, the other point it's worth making, I guess, is that when you're dealing with the local authority, you have to meet the eligibility requirements. I mean, obviously, it's going to be different wherever you are in the country. So I'm not clear what the regime might be in Pembrokeshire. But here, if you want to provide care services to the local authority, then you have to meet their eligibility requirements. And one of them here is that you need to be delivering, I think it's 400 hours a month, was it, Danielle? 400 hours a month, I think, of care before they'll even start to consider you. So you need to have a proven track record before they'll even start talking to you and enable you to get onto their systems for tendering purposes. So we've been developing our strengths to be able to go through that process.
Right, thank you, both of you.
I hope that's answered your question. Anyone else got a question or comment on that?
Graham, there was just a comment from John Roberts, which is very helpful, saying that they're a year older than us. Their experience was similar, and they broke even a year later, and all is good. So that's very encouraging.
Well, that's good to know, John. Thanks for that. Appreciate that. Yeah. So I think I sort of hinted at the beginning. You know, we started out with this idea that we would the core care service would be augmented with a sort of some sort of a wraparound approach using sort of broader sort of community services and provide a broad range of support, which was absolutely in line with our vision of where we wanted to be. But we've sort of struggled with clarifying that, I think, in some ways. And when you start to look at it in detail, and then we found it's difficult to recruit volunteers because of the pandemic and things like that. So it's been an ongoing process. But I think we've been talking much more recently about how we can start thinking about that creatively and constructively in a much more practical sense now, and that's been a really interesting and quite exciting conversation. So I think it's a good time to bring Simon into the conversation now. So as I say, Simon came up to visit us, and he's got a good sense of what we're about, and he's got a lot of experience in this sort of field. So bring those two things together, I think we've got some interesting ideas about where we might be heading for the future. So I'll hand over to you, Simon.
Thank you very much. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yep.
Great. Okay. So technology is not my forte, but I'm going to have a go at sharing a little video and a few slides. But before I do, just to introduce myself, as Graham said, for my sins, I spent a decade working in local government, actually Torbay Council. And before I left some 12 years ago now, I was responsible for strategically commissioning adult social care from Integrated Care Trust and delivering all the housing functions, including dealing with homelessness, affordable housing, private sector housing, and a support program that doesn't exist anymore, which was about helping vulnerable adults to stay independent. So I cut my teeth in local government, and then decided that I got into local government really out of a desire to make a difference. But I realized after 10 years that I needed to come out of it in order to really make a difference. And that's the bit I'm here to talk to you about. So some 10 years ago, I helped set up Torbay Community Development Trust. We're not a cooperative, but I wish we were. And I am a complete fan of the cooperative movement. We're a registered charity, a company limited by guarantee, but we're also a member organisation. So there's a similarity with that. But we focus on community work rather than provision of care, but we work with care providers. About 9 years ago, Torbay, like a number of places in the country, was invited to bid to the National Lottery Community Fund for a substantial amount of money to test new approaches to alleviate social isolation and loneliness, particularly for people over 50. So for the last 7 years, because it was extended for a further year, we've been testing out a range of approaches. Some of you may have heard of the term social prescribing. We've done a lot of that. But the bit I think we're most proud of, and what I'll focus on today, is we have a team of community workers trained in the art of asset-based community development. And that has been the most significant positive impact in our place in alleviating those things, but also reducing demand for social care. But I think most importantly of all, it's changed lives. And so maybe I just want to start off and try and get the tech bit out of the way by just playing you a short 4-minute video. So I'm going to attempt this. My fingers are well and truly crossed. So just bear with me a second. It might take me a couple of attempts.
Okay.
Oh, wait a minute. That's not it. Share sound, optimize. Okay.
Never classed myself as feeling old, but after a couple of major operations, it kind of hits you. I teach one lady how to knit, and now she's become a friend, and we go up cycling on a Monday, we go to Crafty Club on a Friday. Another lady rings me up, and if we fancy going out for coffee, she'll come and pick me up. The time banking is exchanging your talent. The satisfaction you're getting out of it is you're doing something for somebody else, and they're coming to do something for you. And then when you're stuck because you've had an operation and you're looking at 4 walls, you're not on your own, and you don't need the antidepressants to get you through the day. Everybody I've met on the time bank, I've never had a phone full of so many numbers of people that I can just phone up if I need somebody. And that's what this time banking and the ageing well and everything that goes off in Torbay, that's all lottery funded. And we need to keep it going because there's more generations that are going to get the same sort of feelings that I had. Just go to your next pop-up cafe if you see it, and then you'll meet the great people that I've met over the last 12 months. It's just changed my whole outlook on getting old, I think, because you live in an area for 6 years and only know your neighbours, and now I've got a whole new world. It's people that just want to help and want to get to know you and just do things. I don't know how to explain how much it's changed my life. There's no need to be isolated because there are people that will help you and they will care. I used to be a shunter on the railway for First Great Western. Well, it was Wessex to start with, and then First Great Western took it over. And then due to ill health, I couldn't do it anymore, so I kind of got sickened off. They put me off, paid me off. Working nights or 12-hour night shifts or 12-hour day shifts, commuting from Payton to Exeter. So didn't know anybody, didn't even know the neighbours that well. But then when that all finished because of ill health, then I sort of just didn't know what to do with myself. So a couple of months where I'd got paid, so I didn't have to bother sort of worrying about finances. And then it got to the stage where Job Centre was getting on my back. And I'd gone down to the Co-op to get some milk, and there was a pop-up cafe going on in the old sanctuary housing. So I popped in and met Nina, and things have sort of like got better since then. Introduced me to different people, got me into the time banking, where I met Sheila, who wanted to learn to knit a jumper for her husband, which I ended up finishing, by the way. And then going to a couple of knitting groups, and now I run 2 knitting groups called the Torbay Yarn Bombers, with lots and lots of ladies coming along to knit and natter on a Wednesday and a Thursday. One at the Crafty Fox and one at the Lounge in Torquay. So now I know lots of people. Well, since getting involved in the Ageing Well group, I've met so many people, and I've learned quite a few different skills. I can now upcycle furniture, I can do mosaics, and instead of being isolated and not being able to get anywhere, there's always somebody that's willing to pick me up, take me where I want to go. Any hospital appointments I've got, there's always somebody volunteering to do it. So it's just gone from isolation to lots of company and lots of new friends and lots of new skills learned.
I always think it's better to hear from someone who's benefited from some of the work rather than someone who orchestrated it. So that's Robbie, who now runs the Torbay Yarn Bombers, and she's never lonely and isolated because she's got a whole network around her. So she mentioned Nina. Nina was the community builder in her area. So I'm just going to very quickly take you through just a quick set of slides just to tell you a bit about the work, and maybe just finish off with some questions if there are any. So second bit of tech sharing. Okay, can everyone see that okay?
Yeah.
Great, okay. So the bedrock of our approach was asset-based community development. And so this is all about a strength-based approach. So working in community to enable people to get involved in what they care about. So this is less of a service delivery model, more of an enabling, which could really blend beautifully with your excellent person-centered care. So I guess I love this image here of the community driving their own bus there. But just in terms of the philosophy, I guess asset-based approaches come from the people. What we as organizations do can enable the people to do what they care about, what they're passionate about, what they might miss, what they'd like to make better, and harnessing their skills, their passion, their energy. It's all about the assets. And when I came to visit Colne Valley, wow, what an amazing place full of amazing assets. And the biggest asset in any place is not the buildings, not the spaces, but the people, although all those assets are important. And I'm also aware that in the pandemic, you acted as an anchor organization and coordinated some of the support that came from residents and other groups that formed to help people through the pandemic. So there's another fantastic asset. You've already connected to lots of other things around you. And that's what this approach is all about. I guess what's different about it is about focusing on what's strong, not what's wrong. So we're looking to harness the assets we're always focusing on meeting needs, but we're doing it in a different way. The philosophy for the community workers is not to do for others what they can do for themselves. So what we're doing is enabling people to have that really important sense of value from within, value from those around them, and a sense of purpose in their lives. And unfortunately, when we started the project and we engaged people, we discovered actually that wasn't what was happening for a lot of people in our area. We shifted from the idea of being responsible for the community to being responsive to it. And we intentionally connect people and places. To do this kind of work, it's about bringing your whole self into relationship. So this is all about relational working. So the community builder in an area would spend a lot of time having conversations and cups of coffee. Hopefully they like coffee because they get offered coffee or tea a lot. But it's building up trusted relationships with people. And I think you've already done a lot of this already. You've built up trust within your local community through your care services. But I guess the key difference with this element of activity is we're actually intentionally trying to enable the people to be involved. And I guess it's very similar to the cooperative principles. And, you know, if we'd set up the yarn bombers, where was Robbie's role in it all? So we didn't. Robbie set it up. We just enabled it to happen and connected it with other people interested in knitting. We have a number of little strap lines. We believe every community has what it needs when it shares what it has. And that is a core cooperative principle, is it not? So we have a team of 16, and which are now substantively funded by our local adult social care department. Because they are a key part to the approach to social care delivery in Torbay now. Lots of people, when we started, thought they were saying, where are your tools, you community builders? But it's not really about building roofs, as you probably guessed. These are the things that those workers do. They listen and build trust. They go to the people where they are in their bumping spaces. They start conversations and find the passion. They identify the natural connectors in each community. And I met loads when I was up in, I'm going to call it Slowett, because I couldn't find anyone who called it Slaithwaite. But the lady the B&B that I was in for the night was a fantastic connector. She knew lots of things, told me all sorts of wonderful things about the area. And when I asked her, is there a site where you could build some housing? She even had ideas about that. So there are natural connectors in your community, and you may well be lots of them, but we work with those natural connectors. So it's all about connecting things up. And as I said, your anchor role previously gives you a good starting point. We map the assets in any community. And just to say, mapping the assets, it's more about the process of people finding the connections in their place. And often people don't realize what people are doing just around the corner. So it's as much about the process of connecting through mapping as it is about finalizing a map. We spend a lot of time removing barriers and mobilizing people. Our community workers spend more time giving permission to people who want to do something, and they have no authority to give anyone permission about anything. But it's just about confidence. So we use a range of tools and techniques to enable people to have the confidence to take action. We've called this the Torbay way. I guess our practice was specifically crafted around tackling isolation and loneliness, which is one of the three main causes of the need for social care interventions. I'm not going to go around this, but these are the steps we take in order to get to this place where we share together. We use a lovely game called the We Can game, which is basically a tool to give people the confidence to set things up themselves. And I guess those sorts of tools and techniques are important, particularly following the pandemic, where we've all seen a nervousness. You know, people are nervous about coming back out and re-engaging in things. So those tools and techniques are really relevant here today. we started by engaging people. We don't do anything without going and listening to what the people say. And we've designed loads of work we've done around what people have told us important to them. And here again, we see it, value and purpose. Also, you know, that some people don't have higher aspirations. And Robbie was one of those people, but now her aspirations are sky high. But we also wanted to connect and value the contributions of older people with the rest of the community. And that's the next stage of our work. We've done some intergenerational work, but now our community builders are there for the whole community. Even though they're funded by adult social care, we recognise the value of knitting everyone together and old sharing with young and vice versa. But of course, doing fantastic asset or strength-based work in communities it's not going to solve all the problems. So you've already set up a really fantastic care service. And I heard about it from Danielle and others when I was there on Saturday. You're doing the best kind of care there is, you know, consistent care, person-centered care. And I know that within your assessments to plan the care, you also ask some more holistic questions about people's well-being. All of that is another asset that could be built on. So we work with others. The other assets in the community, we have well-being coordinators who have motivational interviewing skills and go into people's homes, probably similar to Danielle and her team when they go and look at what care is needed. We have a lot of people with financial issues, so we've tied in other services and supports from the likes of CAB, Citizens Advice, and others. But we also commissioned a financial inclusion project. And the people told us, actually, we're part of the solution, train us. So that's what happened. CAB trained up 23 older people in benefits level 1 and 2, and now they're providing benefits of support and form filling to their neighbours. They get a sense of value and purpose, and they're contributing. We've provided all sorts of peer support and other mental health support. And some of that, again, is provided by retired counsellors and mental health nurses in our community. So all the time, we're looking at what can each of us contribute in to make this a real community of support. We work very closely with adult social care. In fact, we've now become the front door for social care. So in Torbay, if you make an inquiry for social care, you will be directed to the Torbay Community Helpline. I'll show you a quick slide at the end. But just to give you a sense of it, we set that up the week before the pandemic hit, and we've helped over 7,500 people in that period to date. Oh, the clicker's not working. Oh, there we go. I was asked to give you a sense of impact. Here's a few headlines. These figures are out of date now, but we found 1,400 connectors in our communities across 30 neighbourhoods. We've now worked with way more than 1,700 isolated older people. We've stimulated over 350 citizen-led actions. This is where the people are creating the things for themselves. And here you've got an example which is, it's called The Shed. It's not a man shed because women are allowed there too. But there are different activities in different parts of the space. We enabled it, but we didn't run it. You heard mention of a time bank. So we used a time bank as a tool to enable people in the community to exchange time. And it has the same principles as a cooperative. Every hour is equal to every other hour. So if I give an hour of dog walking, I have an hour of credit. I can donate my hour of credit to a local community group if I want, or I can source an hour of ironing or some other activity. The last one, for anyone who knows about isolation and scales, basically compared to the other, well, there's 14 sites with multiple projects. We reached people with a higher degree of isolation and shifted them further out of isolation on average than all of the other projects. So we kind of know this stuff works. We've learned a lot along the way, and there you can see the yarn bombers creating a stall on Preston Beach. So these are just some of the headline learnings from our experience so far. we're helping the people to build the community, their community. We can't do it for them. We can give them trust, confidence, we can give them self-belief, and we can give them tools and techniques. Also, one of the principles of this asset-based approach is to go where the energy is. Sometimes we spend a lot of time trying to, a bit like Atlas, push the ball up the hill. And what we find is we don't give that too much energy. If the appetite's not there, we go where the energy is, because that creates something for the community. We also found that, you know, like every area, we have lots of existing groups. We respect those groups, we connect with those groups. We don't always expect them to deliver the things that the people might want, because they may have different agendas or priorities. We connect with everything around us, and I started to find out things that were going on in your area, like a well-being service and various other things. I think just the one other one I want to say here is accept serendipity. So because this is much more organic community-based activity, it's not about regulated services. It's okay for it to be a bit messy. It's more important that people get to feel that they're a part of it and they can contribute to it. And of course, most importantly, we make it fun. All of that equipped us for COVID. I mean, this is another example. So there were we trying to alleviate isolation and loneliness. And in one of the areas we work in, the bus service ceased because it was no longer viable for a commercial operator. So what did we do? We set up a bus service. The only way we could make it work was by getting the people, all of who were entitled to free bus passes, to pay a subscription and to run it with volunteer drivers. And that still exists today. So we shifted to the pandemic. I can't see you if you're waving at me, Veronica, but hopefully I've got one more minute. Yeah, 1 minute.
Yeah.
So just to give you a headline, when the pandemic hit, we turned it into a helpline because we couldn't do all the face-to-face work that we do. And so since March 2020, the stats on the bottom bullet point sort of give you the picture. Over 7,592 people have been helped, and these figures were March, so it'll be more now. We've harnessed contributions from over 1,700 residents, most of which we would call neighbourliness rather than structured volunteering. Even the term volunteering, I think, is a barrier to getting people to get involved. So very much our philosophy was, how do we help people to get involved in what they want to get involved in, rather than creating structured volunteer roles that they had to fit into. So that's the end of the sharing. One final fact, since we became the front door for social care in Torbay, we've received, and these figures are slightly out of date, 656 referrals. So those are inquiry calls from adult social care. 81% of those needs have been met by an ecosystem of support called the Torbay Community Helpline. Over 50% through our community builder connections into community, and the rest through a wide range of other voluntary and community group activities, including financial advice, mental health support, and loads of other things. Only 6% of those people actually we had to hand back to social care to have just care. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of a whistle-stop tour of some of the things we've been doing. And I'll stop there. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thanks, Simon. Really helpful. Brian, I can see you've got your hand up. You're on mute at the moment. There you go.
Yeah, thanks, Simon. That was very interesting and inspiring, the way it's all been interconnected. That sounds fantastic. I just wanted to, I'm interested in how actually the Colne Valley got started with the care clients that they've got on board now. Was it going after the direct funders or people who I don't know if up there you've got people on direct payments? And how did you kind of find them initially? Was that easy? And the other thing I'm interested in is, do you have many commercial agencies up there operating? Because in Ealing, there's a ton of them, and they're some of them are very scandalous here in Ealing, because one of our number, she's a self-funder and she pays over £20 an hour for her care, but she found out that her care worker was only getting paid £8 an hour.
8.
Out of that. 8. Yeah, 8. I think that's illegal, actually. I think it's below the national living wage.
Yes.
In London, the London living wage now is £11 and 5p. So yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So anyway, I'll stop there.
Thanks, Brian. Yeah, well, we're a living wage employer. That's our commitment, to pay at least that level. Our clients to date have been either privately funded or in receipt of, is it a direct payment? Someone, nodding at me. Yeah, get the jargon right. And so we're only, as I said earlier, our work with the local authority is just about to start, so that'll change the game yet again on that front. And how did we get them? Well, I think word of mouth through the community. We put quite a lot of effort into marketing, and putting a bit of money behind that to make that work, and that's paying dividends. Yeah, so you're in a competitive space. There are private operators in our area. There are other sort of third sector organisations as well, I think, and that's the nature of the game. I think what excites me about what Simon was talking about there is it sort of fills in the sort of missing third, I suppose, of what we're trying to achieve. Because I think our model is really good at answering the challenge about how do you respect the people in the care profession and give them a good job and a career opportunity and respect their professional skills. And it also answers the challenges in social care from the service users perspective, I think, in that we also place them at the centre of what we do, and we're very much person focused around that aspect. But try as we may, we can't change the fact that there's not enough money going into social care. But what we can do is change the game such that the demand on that social care budget is actually reduced. And I think that the model that Simon's just set out provides us with a route to deliver exactly that, which is really quite exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks.
I mean, just to say that is why this ecosystem of support has been resourced by Adult Social Care.
Yeah, that speaks volumes, doesn't it?
It's part of their funding pressures to save £6 million.
Yeah, and if you look at the social care budget in any local authority across the country is going to be one of their biggest budgets.
Yeah. Right.
We've got a few minutes, 5 minutes left, I think. Have we got anything else that we want to cover? Has anyone else got any questions or comments they'd like to make?
Graham, I've got my hand up.
Oh, Sandra, yeah, please go ahead.
It's just a small question. Could Simon explain exactly what the connectors do? You said you have 1,400 connectors and 1,700 isolated older people. So it's getting on for one-to-one. Can you explain what they do?
Yes, of course, Sandra. Connectors, we don't call them connectors, in community. We don't label anyone, actually. We don't use the term volunteering even. Connectors are the people, you may be one yourself, Sandra. It might be the lady who runs the local cafe. It might be the bus driver. It might be someone who sits on a park bench and listens to people's problems. They're just people in community who naturally want to connect people up. They may have knowledge and understandings that people go to get, oh, where do I get this? I'll go and ask Mavis because she'll know. So they're just natural connectors in community. They're not a formal role. and they come in all different shapes and sizes. Does that answer the question? They're not directly necessarily supporting an individual isolated older person. Some of them might actually be people who have been isolated or lonely, but it's not like a one-to-one support service. They're kind of, it's a bit like, if you know the concept of pyramid selling, which was quite vogue back along, wasn't it? If you reverse that and think about sort of pyramid connecting or pyramid giving, we're working through a network of people who have connections in their community, which is very similar to the cooperative principle, isn't it? You know, actually, all of the people that I met in Colne Valley are all contributing an awful lot to make this a success. And people around it are growing in their understanding of it and potentially their desire to get involved as well. Have I answered the question sufficiently, Sandra?
Yes, thank you. Yes, I am a connector in your sense, and I'm also an isolated older person. So, yes.
Yes.
Can I make a comment? I'm speaking from Pembrokeshire, remember, Simon.
Okay.
There are 2 telephone helplines in Pembrokeshire, one to social services and one to a community hub if you wanted to get hold of voluntary support, community support. And I think what you have said about social services referring people to you is tremendously important.
What will happen? Oh, sorry, Sandra.
Yeah. No. Go on.
At the moment, we still have 2 lines because we have an integrated foundation NHS trust. So social care is delivered within that integrated NHS trust in Torbay. We're just waiting for some tech people, the telephony people at the trust, to organise it so that if you click 1 for social care, you get directly routed through to our line. So there won't be 2 lines. There will be 1 line, which is their number, but it routes people directly through to us. And I didn't say this in my little preamble, but do you know who answers the telephone? Sandra, in your place, it might even be you. So the people who answer the helpline calls are residents. And what people tell us is that experience is so different because it's not a scripted call centre. It's another human being who cares, who's volunteered to get involved in this because they want to make a difference. We have paid staff on every shift and they deal with more complex issues. And if someone gets a bit irate or starts misbehaving, we terminate the call and we pick it up with the paid member of staff. So we have backup and we have volunteer coordination wrapped around the helpline.
Brilliant. Thanks, Simon.
Yeah. So could I just say one more thing?
Go on, Sandra.
You said at the beginning that you had a big grant from the lottery.
Yes.
To what extent is what you're doing possible to replicate throughout the whole land?
Well,
are you too expensive?
We had £1 million a year from the lottery, but all that money is now finished. The programme finished end of March. We've actually managed to maintain every aspect of the work we do through other funding streams, substantively through the local council and the NHS. But if you're talking about a community worker in our model would work with a population between sort of 5,000 to 8,000. So one community worker on about 22k plus on costs would, you know, coordinate and connect with the connectors in that sort of population size. So you wouldn't, I mean, Torbay is a population of over 130,000 people over 3 towns. So it's a bigger population than Colne Valley. So you wouldn't need that degree of resource, but I think you would need a degree of resource. But that might be something that I can help with maybe.
Yeah.
Thanks, Simon. Naomi, you've been waiting patiently with the hand up.
Yeah, thanks. I was just picking up on that point about the use of a local ecosystem there in terms of, fielding different inquiries, I suppose, and support required. I suppose we'll question back to you guys at Colne Valley really about looking at the hours you're delivering now. How much of the percentage, sort of roughly wise, do they fall into that very regulated care kind of bracket, I suppose, and how much would fall kind of outside of that? Do you have an idea around that?
Perhaps that's a question for John or Jan. Have you got a sense of that? Or Danielle? Anyone?
Yeah, I was going to say, I think Danielle have a much better feel for that. We just take the figures that she gives us.
I mean, at the moment, you know, we're very much focused on delivering regulated social care. So I think, you know, the sort of stuff that Simon's talking about is, I think we're seeing that as our next logical step forward, is to move into that space much more significantly. But Danielle, you might have something to input onto that as well.
One cup of tea at a time. Was something that was brought to my attention a few days ago at our face-to-face event. I think it's very much about one step at a time for us, and seeing how and where we go with that. So maybe that would be a great question to come back to us at our next event, and we could possibly measure that somehow. And feel free to sort of communicate with us in between, and keep an eye on any John and Jan as well with their responses on that. And it might be interesting to see how that does progress. So yeah.
Thanks. I think it's just really interesting around where adult social care and then what fits in with CQC and regulation and that kind of, and of course that's the point, but it's also that sometimes that's that requirement, what sits under regulation, where services all have to be in that regulation, and obviously the big hurdles related to that in terms of having a much wider community definition around care and that kind of side of it. I know that's a whole different separate conversation, but in terms of looking at the different models out there, it's sort of, yeah, what falls into what, isn't it? And how we can help adult social care take that broader view, not within Kirklees, I'm just talking generally.
You're 100% correct, and it's a challenge, or something else that we're coming across, and how conversations are happening at the moment. We're actually, and maybe I think it's Veronica that's organising it a bit more, that we're hoping to have some conversations with CQC and the council on how we can implement a lot of the Torbay ideas into what we do. Because there are regulations, we have frameworks to work against, with, should I say, with, and that's very tricky. DBS is being one of them. Straight away, we're losing this element of neighbourliness when we start going through a regimented process of checking on their DBS, and other factors that can influence any sort of hierarchy or power balance between people, and how we want to keep that at a level that doesn't involve crossing over into all of these regulations, yet we still want to be safe. There's an element there. I think we're able to keep that in a safe area with people that have consent, but a lot of people we work with are still classed as vulnerable, no matter if they have capacity or not. So there's definitely some sensitivities around it, how we work with that into the regulated side. But I think at the moment for us, it's really important to develop the regulated side and also develop the social, the community element that we're hoping to somewhat replicate, or at least, mold to what we're hoping for in our community, and how the community shapes that for themselves. And hopefully that will just very nicely fit together. So yeah, hopefully that would have, but again, I think it's very much watch this space, and please be involved if you'd like to be part of those conversations.
Brilliant. Thanks, Danielle. I hope that's useful, Danny. I'm aware we're over our allotted slot. Has anyone else got anything they want to contribute before we wrap up the session? No? Okay, all right. Well, I'd just like to thank everyone for coming along. It's really great to see so many people on the call, giving up an hour of their evening. Thanks to everyone who's put time and effort into making a contribution this evening. It's been really, really interesting and useful. And watch this space for the next exciting step in our journey. We'll keep you all informed as we go.
Graham, can I have a really quick last word?
Oh, please do.
As you know, everything that we're trying to do, we are also taking on people that would be interested in volunteering on any of our with our user members an hour of the time to share some companionship, or to get somebody out walking around their home, just to local post office, or even just to the shop or to the pub, whichever they want. So I know that a lot of people are here because they're very invested, or you are investors, whichever angle you're coming at. But it'd be amazing if anybody did want to contribute any of their time on the regulated side. So please do contact me directly, and I'm happy to take you through that process, and there's no obligation. So thank you. I just thought I'd try and take that opportunity to speak to an audience of people. To thank you.
Brilliant. Thanks, Danielle. Okay, thanks again, everyone.
Thank you.
We'll keep in touch.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye now. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Very much. Bye.
Thanks.